Retrieval Augmented Generation (RAG) is how you make a model answer from your own documents instead of its training data. Normally that means standing up a vector database, building an embedding pipeline, chunking your files, and writing a lot of glue. The Azure AI Agent Service has a file search tool that does all of that for you. You upload documents, and the agent answers from them with citations. In this deep dive, we explain what RAG actually is, the prerequisites, every line of code, and the pitfalls, so you can ground an agent in your own content. Here is the concept. A language model only knows what it was trained on, with a fixed cutoff, and it knows nothing about your private documents. RAG fixes that by retrieving the most relevant passages from your content at question time and handing them to the model as context. So its answer is grounded in real, current, private data, and it can cite the source. The hard part is normally retrieval, turning text into vectors, storing them, and searching by similarity. The file search tool owns that entire pipeline. You just provide files. The flow we will build is short. 1. You upload one or more files. 2. You create a vector store from them. Behind the scenes, the service splits each file into chunks, turns every chunk into an embedding, a numeric vector capturing its meaning, and indexes them. 3. You create an agent with the file search tool pointed at that store. 4. You ask a question. The tool embeds your question, finds the closest chunks, and the agent answers from them. You never pick an embedding model or tune a database. The tool decides all of it. Prerequisites are the same baseline as any agent. You need an Azure subscription with Azure AI Foundry, a Foundry project, and a deployed chat model such as GPT-4o Mini for the answering. You do not need to deploy an embedding model yourself. The file search tool provides the embeddings. And you will want a document or two to upload, a markdown file, a PDF, a text file, anything with the knowledge you want the agent to use. If you have got the chat playground working, you are ready to add retrieval. Setup is the same two packages and the same project connection string from the Foundry portal, set as an environment variable. The Azure AI Projects SDK gives us the agent and file search APIs, and Azure Identity handles authentication through default Azure credential, which signs you in locally via AZ login and via managed identity in production, with no keys in code. We import the AI project client, the file search tool from the models module, and default Azure credential, then create the project client from the connection string, exactly as before. This client is your single entry point. Every agent, file, vector store, thread, and run goes through it. If this line succeeds, your authentication and connection string are correct, which is the first thing to verify if anything later fails. Now the retrieval setup, and this is where the magic is hidden. We upload a document, here a markdown product sheet with purpose assistance, and get a file back. Then we create a vector store and poll from that file. In that single call, the service chunks the document, generates an embedding for every chunk, and builds a searchable index, then blocks until it is ready. That is the entire ingestion pipeline you would normally build by hand, replaced by 2 lines. You can pass many file identifiers to one store to make the agent search across all of them. We create the file search tool from the vector store, then create the agent. Model is your deployment for generating the answer. The instruction is doing real work here, telling the agent to answer only from the uploaded files, which constrains it from falling back on its training data and keeps it honest. As before, tool definitions and tool resources wire the tool and the store into the agent. Notice again, you never touched an embedding model or a similarity metric. The tool owns all of it. Asking is the standard agent pattern, identical to every other tool. We open a thread, add a user message with the question, "What Contoso products do you know?" and start a run with create and process run. which blocks until the agent finishes. During that run, the file search tool embeds the question, searches the vector store for the closest chunks, and feeds those passages to the model as grounding before it writes the answer. We list the messages on the thread and print the text. The answer is composed from your document, and it carries citations back to the source file the passages came from. That is the grounding made visible. This is the difference between a model that confidently makes something up and one that can point to exactly where its answer came from. In a real app, you would surface those citations to the user as links, so they can verify the source. To recap what the service did for you. On ingestion, it chunked your file into passages, embedded each into a vector, and stored those vectors in a managed index. On the question, it embedded your query the same way, ran a similarity search to find the closest chunks, injected them into the prompt as context, and the model wrote an answer grounded in exactly those passages. Retrieve, then generate. You provided files and a question. The tool provided an entire RG stack. The practical notes. First, grounding is only as good as your instructions. If you do not tell it to answer only from the files, the model may blend in its own knowledge, so be explicit. Second, vector stores and files persist and cost storage. Delete the store, the files, and the agent when you are experimenting, and reuse them in production rather than recreating them each run. Third, retrieval quality depends on chunking. Very long or messy documents retrieve worse, so clean, well-structured files help. And finally, the model still has a token limit, so only the top retrieved chunks fit. That is by design, not the whole document. That is a full retrieval augmented agent with no database to run. The sample lives in the Azure samples repo, under Scenarios, Agents, Samples, File Search, linked in the description with the exact path. Point it at your own content, a handbook, a policy manual, a product catalog, and you have grounded question answering over your documents. Subscribe for the rest of the Azure AI Agent series, and go build it. If this helped, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.